You're listening to the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, featuring real business owners telling real stories about their real business experiences. Here are your hosts, John Chiappetta and Eric Jorn.
Welcome to Blood, Sweat, and Business with Eric Jorn, John Chiappetta, and our guest today is Erik Vega of Burke Roofing and Sheet Metal Company. And just want a warm welcome, Eric. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on.
All right, so Eric, obviously in the name in itself, it's a roofing company, but I'm going to kind of let you explain because obviously roofing companies can mean a lot of things. So if you take a moment, just explain the type of business that you do.
Yeah, so people think roofing company, they think residential, shingles, that kind of deal. We do shingle work, but we're all commercial, industrial. We do a lot of, municipalities, a lot of school work, and primarily a lot of flat roof work. So what's a flat roof? It's not a sloped roof, right? No shingles, and it can range anywhere from rubber, PVC to, built up roofs where you see gravel, the old tar and gravel roofs, right? Everybody's familiar with. So, that's kind of what we do. That's kind of our niche. And then on the sheet metal side, it's architectural sheet metal. So, beyond gutters and downspouts, it's metal wall panel systems, copper, soffit panels, anything that can be fabricated in our sheet metal shop that aesthetically enhances a building's look.
Okay.
So, that's kind of what we do.
Is your work kind of concentrated in the Chicagoland area? Or are you kind of all over the place?
Yeah, being signatory to Roofers Union and Sheet Metal Union and Operators Union is you have a 40-mile radius before you're considered outside of your work area from your office, as the crow flies. So, so Chicago, surrounding suburbs. So, we've done work at Antioch High School, and I've done work at Thornton Fractional, in Calumet City. So anything in between, it pretty much encompasses that area.
So, so you mentioned union.
Yeah.
Union is far and few between probably with the clients that I work with normally. Mm-hmm. But so kind of talked about, there's got to be pros and cons. I suppose we could have a whole conversation about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think you're kind of talking about the separation of the entities themselves and the reasons why you do that from a union perspective.
Yeah, definitely. So, union, what big deal with the union is make sure nobody comes in your territory and grabs your particular scope of work, whether it be electrician, plumber, what have you. So, so we're signatory to Roofers Local 11, signatory to Sheet Metal Local 73. Not to say we can't do work in Lake County. That's a different union, though. But Chicagoland area we're a big union city. So, before me, the powers that be, became signatory to the unions, and that was the way they went about it, so that you did have that edge and you could get that skilled labor, and then just how Chicago politics and things are, if that's where a majority of your work is, it was kind of, you don't want to see a big rat in front of in front of your building. So, that's kind of the way it is. And then also from the standpoint of getting labor, that's, a benefit. It's, you can call up Union Hall, hey, I need 5 guys, 10 guys, whatever it is, to complete a job. Not more so anymore, but some of the downfalls is, if I'm competing with somebody that's a non-union company, and if it's a non-prevailing wage job, I'm not going to be competitive, right? So if I get calls at the office, which nowadays is far and few between, but if I get a call in the office, hey, can you come look at my building? I have a commercial project. So my first question is always, where'd you get our information? And do you know that we're a union company?
Right.
Yeah. Because if you don't, and that's fine, I'll go look at it and, offer, a free quote or whatever it is. But I can tell you right now, I'm not going to be competitive with somebody that you have that is non-union. It's just not going to, that's just the way it is.
How'd you get in the roofing business?
So that's a funny story, and I'll try to truncate it as much as I can. But so it's Burke Roofing. Obviously, my name's Erik Vega, right? So I'm not a Burke per se by marriage, I guess. But my father-in-law has 4 daughters, and none of them were involved in the business. So we can circle back to that if you guys want on that structure.
Oh, we will.
But yeah, so my wife and I, one of my brothers lived in Nashville at the time, and she had just completed her master's. She was going to go back to teaching, and I was going to go back actually to school and get a job. At the time, I was between jobs, and we went to visit my brother in Nashville, and we put a little bit of earnest money down on a house that we were going to build, and we were getting ready to move down there, and it was maybe 3 months away, and it just so happened it was at the start of summer, and my father-in-law says, I can appreciate that. You guys do what you have to do. And we're just dating at the time. So he says, does he want a job for the summer? I can help facilitate that if he's between jobs. That way he's not leaving anybody in a lurch if he does get a job or what have you. So I said, sure. So I started out as an architectural trainee, that's a fancy word for apprentice in sheet metal terms, when you're in the field actually, applying it. So he came out to a job site one day, and I just finished some sheet metal work, and he goes, that looks really good. He tells the foreman, and he goes, nice job. And my foreman, to his credit, goes, I didn't do that. Eric did. So I kind of had a little bit of a niche for it, and then 19 years later, here I am.
Nice.
So
There's a lot of in between.
There's a lot of in between in there, but
never thought you'd own a roofing company.
No, definitely not. That wasn't the goal going in, and it was kind of one of those things where I worked in the field, and then you land a job like that, and you start progressing, and then she landed a job here, and why do you need to move? It's so we stuck around for a little bit, and it was like 5-6 years in the field. For me, and then in the winters, he'd move me into the office slowly and asked if I had an interest in learning the business side of things. Well, why not? In hindsight, I don't know, but why not? So I started developing, a taste for wanting to learn the business side of that, because roofing it's a roof, right? It's not sexy, it's not anything like that. It's not competitive in nature, and I'm a competitive person, so you get into the business and the nitty gritty of it, and it's completely different atmosphere than being out in the field and using your hands or applying it that way.
Hey, we're partners in an accounting firm. There's nothing sexy about that.
Sexy, I can't even spell it, Eric. So
that's not true. If somebody looks at their bottom line, then you know what I mean. That's sexy to some.
That's true. Good point. I like that. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah,
one.
there you go. Put it on a business card, right?
Honey, I am sexy. Look at my bottom.
Yeah, look at my P&L. So, that's.
So you had never done sheet metal before this?
No, so I grew up. My dad's kind of a jack of all trades. So he always had a full-time job. He's been there 40, almost 50 years now. Wow. And but being a jack of all trades to make ends meet or whatever, he was always doing side jobs or working at night or renovations. So from the age of 9, 10, I was always a daddy's boy. I'm the youngest of 4, so I'd always go with him. So, it was nothing new to me to work with my hands, or, my brothers could tell you the same thing, my sister even, but I was the one always with him, always wanted to learn. And I was usually the flashlight, guy or whatever, kid, whatever. But, so it's working with architectural sheet metal is very much like working with wood, like carpentry. It's just a different medium that you use to accomplish an aesthetic goal, basically. So
that's actually pretty cool. I mean, but you didn't go to a formal school. I mean, people are going to tell you, how did you survive, or how are you surviving in business without a formal education? How did you bridge that gap for yourself?
So it's kind of weird. I went to community college for a year and a half or so, and initially I wanted to be a high school history teacher. That was my goal. And then let me rewind. When I was younger, I actually wanted to be an architect, and then when I was in high school, they introduced some CAD classes. Well, I like drawing. Okay. Once they started integrating it into computers and computer software, I kind of lost interest. Like I wanted, to do blueprints that were still blue, like by hand. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so fast forward, I went to community college a little bit. I took a couple of business classes, but they were mainly, like I say, I wanted to be a history teacher or whatever. But the one class that I actually took, just based off of interest in it was an interior design class. And interior design is not interior decorating. It's, knocking that wall down, doing this. And there was a little bit of blueprint reading and drawing hands-on in that class. And I never thought it'd pay off, 5 years down the road from that point. And it did. But yeah, to your question, and I kind of went off on a tangent, but to your question is I had a great mentor. I really did. And I think that's where it all starts. It's, if somebody recognizes something in you and you just need that little bit of push or that stern push or, this is kind of the way I've done it. It's like anything else. You learn from them and then you take what might work for you or your personality and you apply it. So, I had a great mentor. I really did.
Well, I mean, obviously that's very helpful. And I think that, how much time did he spend with you before you kind of were released on your own, if you will?
So, like I say, I was in the field probably about 5 or 6 years, and then there's an overlap period of maybe about 3 years, coming in and him being over my shoulder and being really tough on me. And I think part of that was because I didn't have that business background or that formal education. Is how much could I take? Mm-hmm. Like, this is what the real world is like. It's going to chew you up. It's going to spit you out. And if I don't do it to you in here, or if I do it to you in here and you fail, there's no hope for you in the real world, and it's cruel to say, but that's what it is, especially when you're taking on somebody else's name and their legacy that, his grandfather started, in the late 1800s. So, so there was definitely a lot of days where I was like, wow, like I don't know if I can do this. Like that's tough. And, it's just you have to have that intestinal fortitude, right? In all business. So I had it. I have it. Something that's benefited me, and I try not to take anything too seriously. And what I mean by that is, tomorrow's another day. No matter how bad today is, tomorrow is another day. You live to fight another day. So
I think that's huge for really anybody to think about, but especially small business owners. Like, you can't afford to get hung up on something that happened. Yeah. That can derail your whole week, month, however long it is.
Well, it might affect the next sale that you're working on or another project that might be coming down your way.
I think the biggest thing, now that I think about it, was obviously the mentorship and everything, but I really had a trial by fire, and it was because we had somebody that worked with us previously, and I won't go to the ins and outs of it. It was a bad relationship, and something happened. We had to part ways. So we don't have much overhead. We have an office girl. At the time, we had 2, but then suddenly we had no office people, and I was the only one in there. And we had just switched from Peachtree to QuickBooks, and we carry an accountant, but he's more quarterly. End of the year type statement stuff. So everything is done, in-house So now we have no office personnel. I'm still doing my daily job. And now union reports have to be done. Payroll taxes, payroll weekly, our G702, G703s, which are our AIA, payment applications, our waiver forms, you name it. And like I say, it was trial by fire because I'd go work my job and then, I'd have to go to the office and do, the accounting software or whatever, data entry, billing applications. So it really was not only learning the ins and outs of what that business or what this business truly entailed from a paperwork side, but now I can teach it to somebody else, right? So, and then now I can also know if something's askew or a miss from those documents or from my day-to-day operations. So like I say, it was that kind of really put my feet in the fire, and those were long days, but I wouldn't trade them because it did. And regardless how great of a mentor my father-in-law was, he was old school. He didn't have that computer knowledge, or especially with the accounting, like everything was still on a ledger that, he would keep, or, when I started into the office, we were still developing Polaroids and scanning them in on a big scanner. So, one of the first things I did as soon as I could get a digital camera, I did. It just made everybody's lives just something so small, right?
Well, simple changes, but significant, change in the way your processes work.
Yeah.
So What I mean, with some of the other changes. So you're using software for to track your financials. What other? I mean, is there anything else that is like significant changes that you had to make that maybe your father-in-law didn't make?
I don't know about significant because, if something ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But there are definitely things that can make our lives easier. So one of the things I did was buy a big printer to print out blueprints. It cut down on the time of having to wait for blueprints to arrive to my office, and I could now get a head start on bidding projects as opposed to the whole UPS kind of deal, or it just kind of streamlined things in the field with guys. Instead of handing them a large set of blueprints or taking the time out to, hey, I need pages 7 through 10, sending it to my reprographer, and they got to print them. Now I can, hey, I'm going to print page 1. Here's page 1. That's all you need. Having said that, environmentally, I was actually reading an article, and it was saying how everything's in an electronic age, but we're using 10 times more paper than we ever did.
Really?
Because you have it at a punch of a button. Like, instead of ordering one set of blueprints that's going to cost me $250, now I can print one page. I can print 2 pages. I can print a whole set. Oh, there's a smudge on this one. Throw it in the garbage. Now, you know what I mean? So, I digress, but it is funny. But like you're saying, creating a website. We never had a website before. Like, when I first got in there, we were still using an AOL account. So I had to go.
Well, I mean, I really like the website because I like all the history that you guys have on there. You do. You date it back to, your father-in-law's grandfather had, the company way back. And, Chicago's so rich in history in itself. And to show how you guys are a part of that is actually pretty cool.
Yeah. And so what I did was I'm like, we have to get rid of the AOL moniker just as a business. We just do it. And I can appreciate what he did. We were Erik Burke roofing at AOL.com forever, and computers aren't really his thing. So it's more of a function, than a necessity. So what I did, I went on one of your local, GoDaddy, iPage, whatever, name one. I'm not going to advertise for free for you guys, for anybody. So I went on one of the local guys you can go buy a domain name from, and I bought REBurke.com, REBurkeRoofing.com, REBurkeSheetMetal.com, and then I went on and I spent in the winter time when we were slow, I put the site together myself. I drove around to different job sites, snap pictures, and I just threw that together myself because we don't do something where we advertise a lot. A lot of our work is public work or private word of mouth. So it wasn't even for advertising purposes or go look at this, but it's, you have to present that image, right? Hey, I have a website, check out at least some of what we do. So, as far as anything else, I mean, cameras were a big deal. Cell phones, obviously huge, iPads, some of my guys in the field have iPads where they can upload their pictures automatically, but not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's any great idea. Well, here, let's do this. Chances are in some way, shape or form, he's probably tried it. I mean, the man did it for 40 plus years. So, I think my biggest thing is I don't have ego enough where I won't call if I have a question or if there's something I haven't seen. I think that's the big thing. Like,
that's huge.
Yeah, you can't have an ego, especially when you're trying to run a business, because at the end of the day, it's about bottom line, right? So, hey, you did this for 40 plus years. What do you think about this?
Well, obviously, he was running for 40 some years. Something that he never saw was going through something like COVID.
Yeah, right.
So how did you handle that atmosphere of I don't know if you guys were shut down. Did you guys have projects that were pushed back because of it? Supply chain issues, all the above.
I'll take D, Alex. All the above. No, it was definitely a tough year for us, and we're still feeling the effects of it, right? So, first, I can say we had a private customer going into that year that said, "Hey, I have all this summer work for you. I'm gonna be able to keep you busy for months on end." Great. That happened in February, early March. And, you heard rumblings about COVID, but you never, it wasn't here,
right.
yet. So it was a kind of almost a standing joke, right?
Yep.
So, so there was that whole thing. And then, so my bid period, our summer work for roofing, that's prime time. We're putting a roof on the building, where sometimes we're tearing them off. Most of the time we're tearing them off. So roof is wide open. So, summer's prime time, especially for school work. Kids are out. That's our niche. So my bid period is anywhere from now until, May, middle of May. And that's really late in the season. So, I have all this work. I want to be responsible. I'm not the type of person that just gobbles up a whole bunch of work and then figure it out later. To me, that's irresponsible from a lot of different standpoints. So anyway, I get this great news, and so bidding for me is kind of on the back burner. I bid a job here or there just because you never know. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? So COVID hits, and the rug is pulled out from under me, and now bidding period is closed. All that work's on hold, pushed to, God knows when. Fortunately, we had 2 projects that were ongoing. One of them was a decent sized project. So, we're essential workers, right? And I put that in quotes because, we're all
everybody
essential
was an
workers.
essential worker.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So we're deemed essential workers because, quite frankly, if a building's not out of the ground or if it's not running, somebody's losing money somewhere. That's why we're an essential worker. So, anyway, so we had that going, but then, there's plenty of times. And even though my guys are in the union, hey, I want to, everybody else is taking off. I want my 2-3 weeks off so I can get the same pay that I'm getting, the same rights as everybody else, and stay home with my family. And, you can't argue with that. And there's no way I can argue with that, even though the union, they took a particular stance on it, which is neither here nor there. But, hey, at the end of the day, we all have families. We all want everybody to be safe. But, so, I mean, it was that year. It was a tough year from that standpoint. Other guys flourished. Other guys saw that as an opportunity to push schedules up. Nobody's in school. Let's see if we can push our schoolwork up and then take more work and take more work. And now you're taking work at a lower profit margin because you already have this work. And you know what I mean? So it was kind of a perfect storm for some and not for others and whatever. But our real supply chain, that was an issue going back to, getting materials and things from the standpoint they shut down plants. People aren't working and things, right? So there was that, and then a lot of what we deal with was coming from Texas. So when Texas had that huge freeze, that also hurt. And then, now you have shortages coming from China. So a lot of the blowing agents that we needed for roof insulation, things were coming from there. So the past year and a half or two, material-wise, I mean, there was a time where they're like, maybe in 6 months. Maybe in 9 months, we can get you material. Well, what do you do with that? Yeah. My jobs aren't that far out where, hey, I'll get to you in 9 months, because what are you doing in the meantime? If I just told you my bid periods from January through May for work in June or July, that's not a 9 month or even a 6 month period. So it was, and we're still navigating it. It's, where to take a calculated risk. Hey, I'm going to bring in X amount of material for a job I know I have on the horizon. Well, what happens if that job doesn't come to fruition? Now you're sitting in the yard with, 6 figures of material in the yard, which, I mean, theoretically, you could sell it back or whatever, but that's really what it is. But so I've been able to navigate material pretty well, but inflation, that's a whole other deal.
Right.
Because you mix inflation with a material shortage, you have a manufacturer or a supplier's dream, right?
Yeah. Right. So you're essentially just using capital, right, to pre-purchase materials for jobs in advance. But now, which is actually probably a good defense against inflation as well, right? Because you bid a job today,
right,
and you wait to buy materials until it's accepted, everything's rolling, then you're ordering materials. So if the supply chain was fine, inflation's still going up.
Yes.
That's where, and talking with different business owners, a lot of them are dealing with that, where they have order season and they have fulfillment season, and somewhere in the middle, you got to start sourcing materials, and as they have to go to different sources to get those materials, or that time gap in of itself, it's eating away at the margins.
Definitely.
Are you're experiencing that, or
So I mean,
you're staying pretty well ahead of the curve?
We're trying to, but exactly like you said, if I have a public job going, that it's going to go when it's going to go.
Yep.
So if I don't have that material, yes, there was a time period there where, last year, at the beginning of the year, I'm bidding jobs for summer, and they're like, well, if it's third and fourth quarter, you have to put on a good 30 to 40% markup on your material just for what the price increase might be.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if I'm taking that gamble because I'm bidding conservatively, somebody else might not be. And if it's on a public work, they get that. And if it's not 30% and it's 17%, well, now the guy's 13% lower than me. Am I willing to take that risk? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You know, it depends who you're doing the work for, or what, you know, what kind of rapport you have with the building owner, the architect, or the general whatever the case is. So it's been a lot of risk, a lot of calculated risk, a lot of throw a dart at the dartboard and see if it sticks. But, I can tell you, just with inflation and the material shortages and things, the past, if you take away the last 2 years and you just look at the past 10 to 12 years, over the past 10, 12 years span, subtracting the last two, I think material went up, because we keep files on everything, maybe 3 to 5% over a
10-year time frame.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the past 2 years, without exaggeration, by the end of this year, it'd be over 100%.
Wow.
It's just in my mind. It's just like, you know, school districts, you know, they're pulling money from the state, right? So that they're trying to get the work done that the building needs, so the kids are, you know, you're not having leaks, and you're not, you know, endangering anybody. So for them,
still paying the same property tax bill.
Yeah. So it's just, you know, it's amazing to figure out how they're trying to budget that too.
Right.
You know,
I can tell you a lot of projects. I shouldn't say a lot. I know of projects that have been put on hold or scrapped because budgets, you know, a good rule of thumb, you know, if you're replacing a roof, because it's an expensive process. If it's a big part of your building, is start budgeting 3 to 5 years out. So if you're working out budgets from 3 years ago based on what the market was doing then, you can throw that out the window in today's day and age.
Well, even if you added, you know, X amount to your project, you would never anticipate what you were saying, 100% increase in materials in it itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like if you went by previous market trend, that's what you're basing your budget on. Because you could go to Barnes and Noble and pick up a contractor's book that, hey, it's going to be this, or in 2 years, this is what inflation's going to be. And it would probably put you pretty close, right? But nobody could have foreseen the past 2 years. So literally, I've been getting calls like, hey, our project's out of budget. Like, this is crazy. And I said, and there's nothing you can do about it. And, you know, material is one thing, but then now you have, you know, if you're part of a union, every year those dues are going up, and whether they're on fringes or on somebody's check, it's still an added cost, you know. So
are you guys feeling a labor shortage in the unions as well? I mean, okay. Yeah, I mean, because I mean, most business owners are, you know, it's amazing. You're searching for people to work, and it's just like it's such a weird feeling, because I've never felt that before until now.
Yeah, right.
You know, because it always seems to be so plentiful. You know, I was more along the lines, there was people to work, maybe there weren't jobs available.
Right.
I'm used to that. I'm not used to there's a lot of jobs and nobody to work. It's such an odd concept to me.
Yeah, no, it is, and I agree. Yes, being in the union, like I say, that's one of the benefits, because if you're in the union, you're in the union, right? So that workforce is always there.
Yep.
But now that things have started to stabilize, or people are, you know, we're coming out of COVID or building or whatever, because, you know, construction's usually a year or two behind the curve of, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still an issue getting workers, you know, union or not. That, and, you know, it's, nobody wants to get into roofing, right? So you're usually born into it, or you know somebody that knows somebody. So I just even think like the demographic of people getting into the apprenticeship program is down a little bit, especially once they get on the roof. If you don't have a background with, you know, it all seems fine and dandy. They make a great wage.
Yeah.
But until you know, do your 5-6 year apprenticeship program, you're not pulling that wage. So it's a little eye-opening, I think, for some apprentices of what's expected of them from a labor standpoint, a manual labor standpoint, to what they maybe have heard or seen or whatever. So not all of them last.
There's definitely a huge change in the value proposition for workers, right? I mean, we're seeing this in our industry, where less and less people want to become CPAs just because of all the barriers, right? You got to get that extra 30 hours in college. You got to go take this exam that's pretty grueling. Mm-hmm. And, that number shrinks every year. I think the AI CPA, I just read something that they said 75% of their members are at retirement age right now.
Oh, wow.
So, we're so used to hearing that in the food space and often, it's been like that in the trades, and now it's starting to even get down into the professional services realm.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting to see where the worker-based economy goes and how this will all change.
Well, what's different is that it's not like he can export his work out to, another country.
Right.
It's not like, with some professional services, you can export that work out and get it done. But for something that you're doing, unless you're willing to bring somebody in on visa, it's
right.
You're stuck with what you have here.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You're 100% correct.
There's no doubt that the government's going to have to, put their time in figuring out the immigration policy to make it work.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to have to find a way to get more willing workers into the country.
Yeah. I think that's the word, willing, right?
Yeah.
You got to be willing to do whatever job you're going to do. And, current generation, like you said, numbers are just shrinking. I'm not, it's kind of a short-sighted view from the standpoint of, okay, I'm an apprentice and I'm making $19 an hour, $18 an hour to start.
Yeah.
At the top end of roofer's apprentice or roofer's journeyman, it's, $48 an hour plus $28 in fringes. So for all intents and purposes, you're making $76, $77 an hour.
Not even counting overtime, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, but it's an apprentice coming in. Well, I can go make $20 an hour somewhere else doing half the labor. Well, you can, but where are you going to be in 5 years? Yeah, you might be at $25, $30 an hour, but that's not 48 plus fringes and all your benefits and your pension and whatever else. So it's there's a lot of that, and I see a lot of that from the standpoint of every time we go to the standard operating agreement with the unions or whatever, there's always the vote of, do you want your next raise to be on your check, on your fringes, or a combination? And almost without fail, it's always higher on a paycheck.
Yeah.
For some unions, some are different, but because I can appreciate, especially with what inflation's doing, and we're just kind of the climate of the world. You want to see that on your check to support your family, but 20 years down the line, you might hoped or wished you put a little more on the fringe side.
Yeah.
So
sounds like we need to do some work at the high school level of educating people. I guarantee you, if you had a conversation with high school students and said, you can make $80 an hour in being a roofer, they're gonna be like, oh wow, that sounds great. I get to be out in the sun all day, right? Winter's off,
right. Well, it's not like that. It's so much anymore. It used to be, it wasn't even winters off. It was just everybody understood, winters is going to be a slow time, and now it's get a building out of the ground. What temperature do we need for you to put your roof on? Then I give them a temperature and what can we do to circumvent that? It's always
the sun closer to Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. Put a dome around us, right? So yes, you are correct. But there's a lot of that. If the friends I do have that immediately, and it took me a little bit to find my way, but the friends I do had that immediately out of high school, either by family member, I can think of two right off the bat, to be electricians. And now they've been in for, 20 plus years, 22, 23, 24 years. And they're ready to retire, within, a reason. But when they are ready to retire in the next 10 years, they have all, full benefits. They're fully vested. Their pension coming to them, whatever else. So, but that was learned by a family member. That's not something, I think I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
On the flip side, there are people with student loan payments being taken out of their Social Security checks.
Yeah.
You're at retirement age and they're taking money out of your Social Security. You're supposed to be done, right? This is the time for you to just go enjoy life, and you're still paying those student loans.
And that's the other side of the coin, right? So somebody that gets into the trades, they're making a very good wage, a very good living, and they don't have that student loan.
Yeah.
They don't have that debt. You pay your initiation fee, you go to apprentice school, you're learning, a trade that you can apply somewhere, and you don't have that. I mean, we were fortunate. We were fortunate from the standpoint is I didn't go to school. That's not why I was fortunate. Yeah, but what I was gonna say was, so I didn't have that student debt, and then my wife was a full, athletic scholarship athlete.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that when we got together. So I've been fortunate that way. So I can't really speak from experience on having to pay back student loans or anything like that. I've heard horror stories. I have 3 kids coming up, so I'm sure that'll take its toll also. But we were very fortunate that way that we were able to, when we got together, start at a clean slate and move forward, as opposed to trying to erase what you had coming into it, and then try to move forward that way.
Yeah, and I think, when I went to school, it's not like college was extraordinarily affordable. It maybe was. I the last 10 years to me has really seemed to just, especially like grad school, or if you want to go to law school or something like that, it just, the cost of that just seems to have skyrocketed.
Well, that's because iPads are a lot more expensive than stone tablets, pal.
It's just crazy. Yeah.
No, you're right though. Yeah,
It's,
it
you
is.
know,
Love to go look at the financials on a college, big public college.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality. Is where are those dollars going?
Well, especially when brick and mortar things are obviously still,
disappearing,
but they're still there, right? But who's filling them? If you can take half your classes online, there's got to be a savings somewhere in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We all know how budgets work. Right? They never go down.
No, right? Yeah, go down. That's the 1 year. What do they say about the people that salt the streets? They keep the same budget even if they didn't have snow that year. Next year, if they get hit with it, they lost it, right?
Right.
Definitely.
So I don't know. It is interesting to explore, though. If there is something, maybe to educate more about getting in trades or something like that. Because, like I said earlier, it's usually you're born into it, or somebody that for whatever reason. Most people that I know, anyhow.
Okay. Kind of going off, maybe a little change of subject here, though. But what I always am interested in, and when I talk to business owners, is kind of that work-life balance. And I think, you were talking about the days that you were in the field all day. Mm-hmm. Then you had to go into the office and do all the quote-unquote office work. You're doing the accounting work. You're figuring out websites. You're doing A to Z, How did you manage that? I mean, I think if you were to look at like divorce rates of entrepreneurs, I mean, it's relatively high. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's going to be definitely past that 50%. And I think people get so engulfed in what they're doing that they forget about what's over here and what's actually supporting them possibly.
Yeah, so I think I have the opposite kind of approach. Well, to your first point is, the days that were really long, I had just had my first child. So they're a baby, and I always made it a point to, she doesn't know, she knows visually, right? My daughter, when she was a baby. And so I always made a point that no matter what time of day or night, I would go hug her, whatever. I made that time or whatever. But, my wife growing up, my father-in-law in the business, she had a very good sense of, hey, this is what needs to be done. And we decided early on if we could swing it, even if it got difficult, we were going to try to have her be a stay-at-home. It's not for everybody. That's the way we kind of structured our family life. So she knew there had to be a trade-off there. But I'm very much, if I get home, even to this day, and if it's been a trying day or whatever, if I have to sit an extra 10 minutes, 30 minutes in my car just to decompress, just to get everything out of my brain so I can walk in the door with a smile, I'll do it. It doesn't always work, right? I try to make it work as frequently as I can. But, I very much have that attitude. I was telling you guys earlier, like, work is ingrained in me. It's my livelihood. It affords me, all the things that we're able to do in life, right? We're fortunate that way. But
like 24 pairs of golf shoes or something of that nature.
I'm glad you said. I'm glad you said 20. I'm glad you said 24, and you went on the low end. It's I said the phrase earlier. Work is is who I am, because it has to be, especially when you have employees that, they have families and things, but it's not what I am. I'd like to think my footprint on the world will be so much more than putting a roof over your head. And that's a great thing to do. And if that is, kids learning, whatever, it kept them dry. But, I'm a big believer in teaching a next generation, of giving back to somebody in any way, shape, I can. To me, that's very, very, very important. And I can't stress that enough. I genuinely like to see other people succeed at what they're doing in any walk of life. So yeah, there definitely, you have to strike a balance. You have to find something that jams with you, that, hey, whether it's drawing or playing a video game or working out or doing whatever, you have to have that kind of outlet in addition to what your family balance is. Because if you don't, I was told a long time ago by a very wise person that if you don't have that outlet, it's going to manifest itself in negative ways in your life. And use that energy for something that you enjoy doing, as opposed to, letting it come out in a way maybe you don't intend. So I think that's, I think that's very key. Is, like I said earlier, you can't take anything too seriously. Like when it comes to work, yes, I'm as anal as they come. I'm all about business, but in my personal, I'm. No. It'll be hard to find me in a serious state where something's weighing on me or something like that. I try not to let.
Yeah,
it.
Awesome. I can attest that. There's very few times I've seen you without a smile on your face. That's for sure.
Must be something about Eric's, right?
That is something about Eric's. Yeah. Well,
you stop spelling yours with a C.
You got a C and a K. I don't know.
But no, I try not to take anything too seriously. It's you can't. I mean, you drive yourself crazy. I try to, I'm very type A when it comes to work or things I'm being competitive at. Mm-hmm. But
you're competitive? Yeah. A little background. We played a little flag football together. But Erik was very jovial, and he never got upset. He never, I never heard catch the ball, drop it again, you're out of here. No, I never heard any of those things.
Yeah. Well, because that'd be me projecting my own shortcomings on somebody else, right? I reserve that for myself. I'm my
What
own
about on
critic.
Sundays?
Well,
I'm the worst coach on Sundays, yelling from my couch.
Yeah, right.
Well, you guys are both Bear fans, so you guys have your challenges.
Oh, yeah,
so,
yeah. Well,
hey, you want something that's going to prepare you for business? Be a Bears fan, friend.
It gives you some tough skin, right?
No, yeah, definitely. But no, I am. I'm yelling at the TV. I'm that, don't get me wrong. I'm not, Mr. Laid Back, but I kind of go with the flow. You can't, let your highs get you too high, your lows get you too low. It's, you just, but in this life, there are so many things to take seriously. If you're constantly doing that, you're going to drive yourself crazy, and you're going to be miserable for everybody else around you.
Yeah, everybody feeds off. I'm a true believer in everybody feeds off each other's energy. And if you're having a bad day, you bring it to everybody else. Everybody else feels it, and you can derail their day. Yeah. And as a business owner, that's so important.
Oh, huge. I mean, yeah, it's definitely, if you walk into a meeting and you're full of piss and vinegar, you're kind of setting the tone for what that meeting's going to be. And there's a time and place for it, don't get me wrong. But it's not every time, and it's not every place.
Right, absolutely.
Some people feel that way. And if that's them, hey, that's everybody, gets through their day the best they know how. And I prefer to do mine, not taking anything personally. I think that's one of the biggest things for me is I have a very good ability not to take things personally, unless you say, hey, Erik, you suck. You know what I mean? That's personal, right? But I try not to
myself.
I try not to misconstrue things or read too much into things because it could be an innocent whatever. We never know what somebody else is going through in their day.
I think that's actually a very good point. You never know what somebody else is going through. Sure. So yeah, not taking it personally, I think is pretty huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I say, that's what I try to do. It's I think. I came from a family where we're very close-knit, very old school, and you couldn't help but take things personally. That's just the way we were raised.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to try to change that because, maybe so-and-so really didn't mean to look at me in that certain way. Maybe, you know what I mean? Right. Maybe he was looking at something behind me, but it's reading. And if he was, if he has an issue or something, then maybe, he'll say
sometimes it's
something.
their issue, right?
Yeah, exactly. All the time it's their issue, right? I mean, you're a manifestation of what your reality is. And if my reality is, hey, I don't like the way you're looking at me, well, that's my reality. That's my problem. That's not your problem, and vice versa. So, yeah, it's just, I try to separate myself from any, drama in my life, any negativity, anything like that. I'm pretty quick, to cut those things off. And even in a business sense, I like the old adage is hire slow, fire fast, and it's the same kind of deal. So
that's one of the top comments ever.
Yeah.
Hire slow, fire fast,
We can't all implement it when we want to, right? Especially now with
not in this
apartments
market.
being what they are and whatever. But you can definitely vet somebody and do your homework, or if you have a feeling about them or whatever, definitely. But yeah, I've always, at least in the business sense, hire slow, fire fast. And to me, that carries over into your personal life as well.
With your friends, for sure, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's... we used to have certain family members or whatever that if you didn't show up to a party or whatever, it's like, why didn't you come here? And then they're giving you stink eye at the next party, and like, now you're feeling whatever. Like, I don't take that personally. If you can't make it, I don't need a reason. You don't have to come up with an excuse. I'll see you the next time. If you don't want to be there, I don't necessarily need you or want you there. But it's not even that. Like, if you can't be there, why am I going to take that? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah, I'll get you on the next one. Or I like being around people that you genuinely like being around and have a good time with. Otherwise, what are we doing? You're just going through the motions and putting on a facade for what? That's the same thing kind of in business, right? You're going through the motions and putting on a facade for something. Then if that's not what you truly think, or if those aren't truly your ethics, you're lying to yourself.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, what else is meant for life other than enjoying whatever you're doing, right? It's not really just having fun, but enjoying what you are doing.
Yeah, I think being cognizant of the fact that, we work for 40, 50 years, hoping to get, 10 years of retirement, of things. And now we're old and we're not enjoying things the way they used to. So I think in, your daily life or your annual life or your month, however you want to quantify it, you need to kind of use that to live in the now and enjoy some of the things you're able to, and it doesn't always work out that way. But if your ultimate goal is you're waiting for retirement, retirement might never come.
I might be stripped somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Might not make it.
Exactly. So you have to take the, little victories in life when you can get them, or the small pleasures in life when you can get them. And, just not just lip service. You have to make an effort at it, like anything else, whether it be your personal life, business, whatever. It takes effort. It takes work. Anybody that says it doesn't, they're lying.
Agreed.
So.
For sure. So an interesting scenario. I like to ask this question because I feel like it's a good question, and it's a good discussion for people who are just getting into business. Mm-hmm. Most business owners experience some point in time in their business when cash gets tight. You're nervous. Am I going to be able to afford the next payroll? Things like that. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us about a situation where maybe you faced something like that, and then how you got yourself out of it?
Well, I mean, if we're even just using today as an example with material, right? It's so if I'm purchasing X amount of dollars in material and I don't have the project or contract in hand, they told me the project's going to go, but contract in hand. That's all great and dandy, and you're protected your profit margin, like you said, or whatever. But explain that to a bank.
Yeah.
Explain that to a bonding company. No, but wait, I have $100,000 worth of material in the yard. Well, really? What projects is it going for? What's your profit margin on it? I don't know. I can't tell you that. Well, you can't tell me that. That's not on black and white paper. A bank doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
So it's navigating that way. The big thing is also, I think, is, when you're dealing with certain things, whether it's a new product coming out or how much you're going to bleed on a job until you finally, put the tourniquet around it, is knowing to when you have to be honest with yourself at the end of the day, knowing when to cut bait. If something doesn't look like it's going to be viable for you, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, maybe I can't go in this direction, or maybe I got to cut bait, or for whatever reason. So it's, it's a day-to-day evaluation day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. It's, it's in our business, it's, I don't have people walking through the door to buy something, it's an eat what you kill. So it's, that's, it's like I say, if I'm bidding on a job, right now I have a couple of projects on the books for early part of next year, but it's not going to get me through the year, because we're not in that bidding season yet. So it's a very much eat what you kill. But to answer your question, I guess, and I went a roundabout way is, I was always taught just do the work and everything else will take care of itself. Just put your nose down, keep doing the work. There was 1 year I must have bid 15 jobs in a row and I finished second, third, second. And, so I called my father-in-law. I'm like, it's like the 15th job. He's like, what have I always told you? Bid the next one. When's the next one going to bid? There's nothing you can do about those. Keep doing the work and eventually something will pop. And if it doesn't, then it's one of those years. We've all had up and down years. We've had lean years. So that's a big thing. You just, put your head down and just do the work. It's anything in life. Everybody wants the lottery ticket. There's no miracle elixir that's going to get you rich unless you win the lottery, in which case we'd be having a very different conversation right now. All right.
We might not all be here today.
But that's just do the work. That's all I can really say.
I think that's sage. I like that.
Yeah. I think that's a great spot to probably let Erik go. I don't know unless you have some other questions that you were looking at.
You've been great. I really appreciate your energy and, talking about that work-life balance and just your demeanor and how you compose yourself. I think that's so important. I think we all should walk away from this, listeners and us, just, think about being positive, being in the moment, enjoy that.
Yeah, I think, and I appreciate you saying that. I think that to me, that's mission accomplished because, you can have somebody in here, or, I'm sure you guys talk to business owners where, let's talk about business. Let's do that. But like I say, business is a function of life. It shouldn't be your life's function, right? And to me, it's afforded me, and it's given me the schedule to not miss things for my children or be there. But going back to the, you got to do the work is, okay, if I don't miss my kid's first day of school and I'm there, you have to make that work up somewhere. You know what I mean? And it's whether it's 3:00 in the morning finishing a bid or 4:00, and that's that balance. It's yin and yang. It's AM PM. Like it's you have to do it. But no, if that's the big thing though. It's if I can get that message out there, and if that's how I come off, the mission accomplished, because that's how I view the world truly. And I think that you kind of have to. Love it.
If somebody wants to learn more about your business, how can they find out?
They could go to reburke.com. That'd probably be the easiest way. I'd say call the office, but you're not going to get me.
Are you guys on social media or anything?
No,
like
we don't really do anything like that. It's you could just go to the website and you'll see some of our projects and things. There's a link on there where, if you wanted to email me or something like that, our phone number is definitely on there. This was great. I think what you guys are doing is great here, helping, small businesses. And I think you said before, and you said, watching your intro, if somebody can just take even the smallest thing to help enrich their life or their business or, help them grow, that's awesome. Yeah.
Cool, man. Erik, I really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
You had a lot of fun today.
Yep.
Threw a little jokes your way. I even got an opportunity to throw something about the Bears, which I usually don't. I'll catch that at the back.
You're not going to live that
That's
down.
a softball. That's a layup.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, listeners. Yep. Tune in for next time. You have been listening to the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. You can hear more real stories from real business owners about what it takes to make it in business by subscribing to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you like what you hear, leave a review and a 5-star rating. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs and Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com.